welcome to Freaks and Creeks, a Dawson's Creek podcast, the show where four millennials who missed the boat 25 years ago take the dive for the first time. Join us as we experience the series with a fresh perspective week to week and see if our adolescent experiences match up with Dawson and the gang. My name is Cody.
I'm Stella.
I'm Mallory.
And I'm James, and this week we are talking about Season 1, Episode 4, Discovery. This episode aired on February 10th, 1998, and the synopsis is, Dawson turns to Jen for comfort after learning about his mom's affair with her co-anchor Soft B Bob, as well as Joey's knowledge of it. But he regrets doing so when Jen tells him some of her own problems involving her promiscuity and the real reason her parents forced her to move to Capeside. Meanwhile, Pacey and Tamara continue to tempt fate with their affair, which was compromised because Dawson accidentally videotaped it. It's written by Kevin Williamson and John Harmon Feldman, and it was directed by Steve Miner. And this was quite the episode. What did you all think about it this watch? How did it treat you, Stella?
So I watched it like right after the last episode, and I was in shock. I couldn't believe a lot of the things that were happening. Like, as we say, keep saying, they keep doubling down on things. And I mean, it was a fun time. I'm really curious to see how the story is going to continue, because I feel like, a lot of the storylines are climaxing very quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really curious to see what will continue to happen.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how quickly we are getting the kind of resolution for some of this stuff, or at least what seems like a resolution. Mal, what did you think about this episode?
Yeah, I feel like it was an intense one. How Dawson's world is starting to cave in around him. He's getting a lot of reality checks, and it's kind of nice to see him out of this fantasy world that he's built, up for himself. Also loved Jen's fashion in the episode. I will be mentioning some things on that. And the music was great.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I thought the music was initially, as I was noting the music and finding the songs for this, I was like, what is this shit? A lot of it is just, I couldn't place, I didn't know, but after having the episode kicking around in my head and rewatching it a couple times, the music is actually really good in this episode. It kind of really stuck with me. I pulled a couple little clips that we'll play later, but Bare Naked Ladies getting in on this.
Yeah, that was sick.
I noted that.
Toad the Wet Sprocket makes a valiant return as well with another song.
Is that the post-grunge song that happens a couple times?
Yeah.
With that feedback intro?
Yep.
Man, that was great.
I clipped that, so we got some good times coming. But Cody, what was your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I thought it was much better than the previous episode, which was kind of a train wreck. This seemed like, in a way, a return to form, but also it seemed like it was paving the way for a balance of everything. All of the things that have really stood out to us, I think, with hyper stylized dialogue and relationship stuff, it seems like it's all kind of all over the place, but this seemed to strike a really good balance with all of the things that were kind of too loud, I think, in the previous few episodes. Obviously, the Pacey and Miss Jacob stuff sucks shit.
Yes.
And we're in the long haul with that, but I don't know. Whatever. At least I don't know. Fuck it. Yeah, it sucks.
I mean, it really sucks that it was I feel like we need to do a supercut of every time we've talked about how much this Pacey and Miss Jacobs thing sucks, because it's probably 55 plus minutes at this point of us just being how are they doing this? Why are they doing this? Why are they continuing to do this? And there's no signs of it stopping now. I mean, I think this episode, initially, I was with all of you. I thought it was great. I loved it. When I rewatched it, I was left with this just empty feeling, which was really strange. I couldn't care less about it.
Yeah.
I was just kind of huh, okay. And
I think I felt a little bit of that too when I rewatched it. I was not as excited.
Right. Which is weird because
Interesting. Huh.
I think what I like about this episode is that I feel like we're actually finally getting to see some outcomes, right? We're not just getting more setup. I feel like we've been getting a ton of setup in all of the episodes, as far as, like characters beginning to kind of establish what their arc is, or we get the first steps towards their arc. And in this episode, we get a little bit of resolution. So it felt good in the moment, which is, I think, why we all had such a positive first watch. But on the rewatch, it just felt very quick and just like surface level. And I had a hard time really engaging with more of the episode as I watched it later. Sorry, Val is playing with the basketball in the hallway, and she's
cute.
just going wild on that thing.
All the reasons it seems like that you weren't into it is like why I think I'm attracted to the show more is I mean, it's funny because we came into Dawson's Creek having just finished Gilmore Girls, which is like so light and breezy and slice of life. So going into Dawson's Creek, I was really hoping for that same vibe, which it hasn't been at all. But in this episode, there are like a couple of moments where it's like very breezy and it's like, oh, we're just hanging out. And I'm like, yes, give me that. Like, except for like some drama that unfolds. Like for 1 minute, I just thought that, Joey and Dawson were going shopping for an anniversary gift.
right.
And I was like, yes, I want a full episode of just that. Like, I don't need the drama.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that we're getting a new location. We got the store. We haven't really been there yet.
Yeah,
A
the
name
news,
store.
the news station,
The news
Yeah,
station.
that was cool.
Yeah.
like the park. Like it feels like we're
building out more of
learning
Cape
more about-
Side.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cape Side.
I liked the shots of like the street, like just like the town or like the main street. It looked really like cute and like I don't know. It was fun to see some of those like, just like this is what the main street looks like.
Yeah.
And it seemed like really well, like it seemed lived in. Like there were people
Definitely.
around and
like a coastal town that
totally, yeah.
Made me want to go there.
yeah
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
It no longer feels like a town of 20, I think, after seeing
Yes.
this episode. Like it actually feels like there are people who live here. There are people who have lives and jobs outside of Miss Jacobs and Dawson's mom, basically, who are the only people who seem to have anything to do.
Also, something with this episode that like finally clicked with me is not in a good way, but Dawson has this like cutesy kind of like I'm a man child, kind of like, oh, I didn't really know that. Like he's a little baby man when it comes to sex and relationship stuff. And it's really creeped me out this entire time. And I finally realized like what he's trying to do. And it reminded me of Ethan Embry in the greatest 90s teen movie, Can't Hardly Wait. Because like he's like a really similar character where he like, he doesn't know anything about relationships, but he's like projecting all this, like, I'm in love, and I'm in love, and Ethan Embry slayed that character. Like he did a really good job of being that kind of like adolescent love, cutesy, like I'm a romantic weirdo. Whereas whenever James Vanderbeek does it, it makes my skin crawl.
Yes. I was about to say, like, I
Yeah.
had the biggest crush on Ethan Embry in that movie, and I could not be less attracted to James Vanderbeek.
Yeah, sorry, James Vanderbeek. Love you. I'm sure you're a nice guy.
He seems like a great guy, but I totally agree. This episode, there's specifically the scene outside of Jen's grandma's house when
Yes.
we'll be getting into our scene by scene. But when that scene happens, Dawson is disgusting to me. The way that he's talking, he's like, oh, okay, well, are we? I take it we're not alone then. It's just like this, like
It's so gross.
and he's got his eyebrows up and his lips pursed, and he's just got this like. There's no other way to describe it besides than the director probably was like, "Hey, pretend you're 13."
Yeah, totally.
You know, like it's just like that youthful look on his face, but he doesn't pull it off, and it just comes across as creepy to me. It just feels really creepy and weird. So yeah, I haven't seen Can't Hardly Wait. Is that what you
we're
said?
doing
haven't
a
seen it?
watch.
I mean, maybe
We'll
I've
have to
seen
watch
it, but I definitely don't know like what
It's been a
that's
while
like, that
since
is.
I've watched it.
That is
we
like
should do
such
a-
yeah. Oh man.
Oh yeah, the
Is
90s vibes that we wanted from this
Right.
like is turned up to 11 with that
Really?
movie. Yeah,
Wow.
it
It's
is
like
so
yeah,
good.
it's so perfect. It's just like the most 90s like high school party like
Wow.
movie. Like it's just like feels very nostalgic.
Yeah. They basically take the concept of every teen movie is like the best scene is always the party. So let's make an entire movie of just the party and cut the fat, and it rules.
That's fun. Yeah. I mean, maybe we need to do a side episode where we watch that and start getting into some 90s films, because I definitely want more. This episode did introduce more slice of life stuff. It is doing more world building, which is, I think, something that I really want, but it also just makes me hungry for more 90s media content. And I think I'm starting to battle with this idea that, like, you know, we came into Dawson's Creek with next to no knowledge about what this is, aside from the crying James Vanderbeek meme. That's kind of what we had, plus at least speaking for myself, that plus the title credits, you know. So I'm starting to learn this is a lot less 90s referential, intentionally so, than it is. It is nostalgic for the 90s because it was one of the biggest shows of the 90s. You know, I'm not getting this feeling of like they're really trying to set this in the 90s, right? Like
there's like a level of timelessness to how things are going. I mean, there has been
the 90s, it could be the 60s, it could be the 2000s, because they're kind of agnostic of culture.
Yeah.
It's in the time bubble.
Yeah, the only thing that ever really comes across as super 90s to me is the fashion, obviously, but also like when they do the super stylistic dialogue, because that kind of just sounds like Buffy or any other show from that time period.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a time capsule by proxy of being a show made in the 90s, but it feels like they were intentionally trying to not make it feel like the 90s.
Yeah, I want an episode where they go to a Smash Mouth concert.
Well, we almost got that with the Bare Naked Ladies.
Yeah, for real. Also wanted to point out, like, I hadn't noticed this yet, but during the end credits, it said that Mike White was a creative consultant on this show.
Oh, wow.
And so like he's like known for being the showrunner of HBO's White Lotus and Enlightened. He also wrote School of Rock. And he was also one of my favorite contestants on season 37 of Survivor, David versus Goliath. But super cool. And I looking at his writing career, like 98 is pretty much when he got to start. He also wrote another movie that came out that year too. But yeah, like I would love to know more about Mike White being in that writer's room. This doesn't really feel like something that he would write. So
wait, did you see if he has been on wrote on multiple episodes of Dawson's, or?
He gets the writing credit for like 4 or 5 episodes, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's like season 1 and season 2. And he probably left after that because, you know, he became really big. So, well, I don't want to wait for our lives to be over to get into it.
Let's go ahead and get started then, Cody.
All right. So we open on Dawson and Joey watching back footage from what I assume is either Dawson's not great horror movie or his Peeping Tom coverage of Jen. This opens the floodgates to Joey riff on Jen's looks and predict her entire lifetime of privilege. And while Dawson is swapping out some tapes, they land on a tape of Pacey and Miss Jacobs having sex, which is how we finished the last episode. And it's important to note that Dawson here also drops the tidbit that his parents' 20th wedding anniversary is right around the corner.
So the footage that they are watching of Jen is the exact same footage of her Hey Pretty Girl entry in episode 1.
Oh.
I checked.
That's so fun.
And I have
love that.
screenshots.
That's wild.
How meta is that?
That's incredible.
They're watching a scene from Dawson's Creek.
Wow.
I love it when shit happens like that, where they're just recycling their own footage to be a clip. Man, that's crazy.
That's crazy. I didn't catch that at all. But you're right, because I don't remember them shooting any like hair flipping stuff.
So the cab is in the back, and she's wearing the exact same outfit, the same lighting, the same time of day.
Great catch, Mal. Wow, I love that.
Yeah, I kind of some of my first thoughts were like wondering why. I mean, we know why, like Joey is jealous of Jen, but I was like, why is Joey still hating so much on Jen? Like, I feel like they've had quite a few positive interactions where Jen has been really like kind and generous to Joey, and Joey seems to like see that and like appreciate it in the moment.
JoJo's in love with Dawson, though.
I know. It's what I'm saying. Like, yes, we know that she's jealous, but it just seems like, okay, like clearly she's not like, I don't know. She's like trying to be friends with you. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I know. That was the note that I took as well. I was just like, why is she so mean here? She is being ruthless for Jen, who we have seen